Hi, everybody. I am so sorry that it's taken me so long to respond to you, but I um, can tell you that I hadn't forgotten and that I actually kept a copy of the chat that was generated during my talk. And I have been wanting to, respond to all the questions that were in the chat. So I thought that I would do that in a screencast. And so I'm doing this with Screencast-O-Matic. This is one of the tools that I shared with you in my 3 recipes presentation. So I'm going to do that. So I have shifted now to look at the chat. We're looking at the chat that was generated during my talk. And one of the first questions from Mark was about the kitty cat that's in my browser that you can see right here. And so I use Firefox, and I just wanted to show you that if you pull down the Tools menu and select add-ons, that's the page that I'm on right now, you can actually do a search for kitty cat. And you could also add the word animated and then search for that, and a whole bunch of options will come up. Oops, I must have spelled animated wrong. There we go. A whole bunch of options will come up. And I have chosen this one. This is the one that I have currently installed, but you'll see I have others that I've used over the years. So that's how I get that cute little cat on my browser. Now let's see. Oh yeah, the URL, I use a tool called Bitly to generate these short URLs, and it is case sensitive. So when this is the tool Bitly, so you'll notice that it's Open Pedagogy 3 recipes, and the O is cap, the P is cap. It's all, no spaces. Bitly allows you to create these short URLs very easily. You just paste in a long URL in this box here, and then it'll automatically generate a shorter URL, and then it actually gives you the ability to customize. So you can take the shortened URL that it creates and then modify it or create a more something that is more understandable than the jumble of letters and numbers that it automatically creates. So that's how I got that Open Pedagogy 3 recipes, but it is case sensitive. So I'm glad you like the idea of class bookmarking. Stephen asked if it was free, and in fact, you'll see here, this is my Diigo account, and I use the free version of that account. Of course, if you want to make use of some of the additional features that Diigo has, there are some costs for that if you want to have a more the standard account or the professional account or the business account, and it includes additional features. I have found that these features, the core features that I use in the free account is just fine. I haven't needed to use any additional features. Will it not create a parallel source for students beside the Moodle or the course website? And we were talking at the time of, we were talking about Diigo at the time. And so, yeah, this resource and many of the resources that I use in my instruction exist outside the confines of the learning management system. and it does create a site and a space, an area that exists in parallel and outside the confines of the learning management system. And I do that purposefully. It's intentional. And the reason I do it is because I want these things to persist beyond the end of the term. When the course is over, the students lose access to my course. And so they lose access to everything that they built or did or said or created or added to the course. And so by keeping some of the artifacts and some of the information outside the context of the course, outside the wrapper of the course, that access then will persist beyond the end of the term, and I can continue to create community amongst students from my course beyond the end of the term. So not only with me beyond the end of the term, but also with other students who have ever taken the class beyond the end of the term. Yeah, let me just go back to the questions. Can it be embedded into the learning? Privacy and confidentiality policy. What's that like? And concerns that folks have about that and students have about that. Well, this particular site, this ETAP 640 group in Diigo, for example, has only students who are, in the course, registered students of the course that are members of the group. And you can define how that works for you or how you would like that to work. So the way I've set it up in terms of who can view, anyone, the whole public, anyone in the world can view the group, but invitation to the group is by invitation only, and I am in charge of this, so I only invite the students to my group. So I've set it up purposefully so that anyone in the world can see it, but only my students who have been invited into the group can actually contribute to it. And the other piece of this is that when you actually look at resources where we've used Diigo, this is just a public blog, one of my students' public blogs. So to the world, her blog looks like this. But if I activate Diigo, then all of a sudden you see this sticky note where I've left a note for her and I've highlighted this text here, and there are notes that I have left here, and these notes only appear to me and to the members of my ETAP group, so only we can see any messages that are left to each other. Any of this color coding that you see here is only visible to those of us who are in the ETAP 640 group, and I control that. So if I get rid of that, it goes back to being public and not visible. All right, let's see. That was the confidentiality. Can you embed it? So yeah, and I love Diigo for that reason. This is my Moodle course, just so that you can see it in the context that I created it in. And here is, over here on the right-hand side, you can see ETAP 640's best content. And you can see the latest link that has been added to the group is instruction by design and supporting the spectrum, building a bridge between families and schools. And if you come over and look at, the actual library, the ETAP 640 library, you can see here that the instruction by design link is here and the supporting the spectrum link is here, which exactly mirrors what's in this link role. So I have embedded a link role into this course, and it automatically appends anything new that's added to it the moment that it's added to it. And so it essentially allows me to add content, refresh content that is visible within my course by simply bookmarking new things and sharing them with the group. And as I described in my presentation, I'm not the only one that does this in my class. My students also are required to bookmark anything that they come across or that they share within their discussion posts as supporting, citations or documentation for any assertions they make in discussion. And so we are collaboratively building, as a class, we're collaboratively building this annotated bibliography of shared resources that lives within the course. As you can see, this is my Moodle course, but it also lives outside of the course and will persist beyond the end of the term so that students can continue to access the resources that they shared, that I shared, that anyone shared during the semester, and continue to contribute to those shared resources after the course finishes. Okay, let's go back to the questions. So yes, it can be embedded. Always trust a recipe from Vanessa. Thank you, I agree. If you follow the recipe, you will get consistent results. I loved that Daria mentioned that student engagement improves when we understand the why. I think that that is true of everyone, not just students, and so explaining the why of things I think is super important. It just adds a dimension that I think is really important. There was a question from Vanessa about, or a statement about, getting IT on board. Liz had followed up and sent me a note asking for some suggestions about how to go about doing that. And I say, you have to work together. The institution and the IT staff are there to assist and support the pedagogical mission of the institution and are there to support you. And of course, they have concerns like security and safety and privacy, and their concerns are important and legitimate and there for reasons. Of course, I feel strongly that they work in the service of pedagogy, and sometimes there's tension there. But I think trying to understand things from their perspective and to get them to be collaborators with you in your endeavors, and to have a system in place that allows for innovation, exploration, piloting things, and a process for how those things move from pilot or sort of, experiments to getting institutionalized and supported. And we want to make sure that things are accessible, that things are safe, that things are at some point or another get supported by the institution so that we can continue to use them effectively and well. Then there was a comment by Adela about how to make sure we don't end up sharing information for free. I mean, I could talk for hours about this. I really feel very strongly that, at least in my own practice, in my own position, I want to give everything away. And I do that freely. I openly license everything in order to share and to network and to have people not have to reinvent the wheel. Someone else said it's free, but they can't get the certificate, without going to you. And the analogy that I always have in my own mind is that, information and knowledge and content is free. You can walk into any library anywhere in the world, and pretty much everything that is known, depending on the size of the library, can be found there. The value that institutions add or that professors add is guidance, feedback, pathways and certification, right? And so you can't walk into a library and all of a sudden know everything. It is there, the info's there. And so making things easier to access, openly available, to me is a very important part of of my open pedagogical